Hello, I'm David Hamilton, and welcome to another edition of Wise Words with my special guests, Erin and Rory. And I'll tell you what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about love in later life and dating. Now, for a woman who's married with 5 children, I mean, this is probably not... but you must have pals who are maybe, peers of yours who are perhaps dating and maybe looking for love in later life?
Yes, indeed, David. Yes, I've heard many a hilarious or awkward story from them about, pictures not matching the person when they get to meet people and the stories not matching. And quite a lot of complaints from the women that the men of their age want women 20 years younger, I have to say. Quite a lot of that. And I also have quite a few friends who actually are very happy being on their own and have decided, they're more comfortable being on their own because they found that meeting someone has just not worked out for them, meeting someone new, I mean, personally, I think nobody would match up to my husband, so, he'd be a hard act to follow, so...
Yeah. If he's watching this, he'll be a very happy man.
Well, absolutely.
Rory, what are your views on dating? I mean, I think you did it was a few years, it wasn't really later life, but a few years ago you met your beloved. How did you meet her?
Well, yes, I did meet in later life because, of course, later life now, especially to younger people, starts at 56 or 60, doesn't it?
Does it?
Some people think later life.
Oh.
Some people think you're quite old. Younger people think you're old when you're 50.
Yes.
We don't.
No.
We don't think we're old till we're 95.
I think
digress.
by the way that we are much younger at the ages that we are now, at least 10 and maybe more years younger than our parents were. They looked older and they thought
older, definitely. Mm-hmm. But I met somebody not online. I met somebody through a newspaper column. It was called Soulmates. And I was on my own, and had been on my own for a year or 2 or 3, and I thought, I want to meet somebody again. So I answered this ad on Soulmates, which was with the Guardian paper, and I met this extraordinary lady. She'd been living in Australia for 9 years in Sydney, and we met at Sloane Square. And this is true. As she came up the escalator, I waited for her at the top. As she came up the escalator at Sloane Square Tube Station, I thought, I think this is going to work. So we had a coffee. I get quite emotional thinking about it. This is 25 years ago. So we had a coffee, but she was looking at me and she said, well, I've never gone out with a bald man. And I said, well, fair enough. And then what else did she say? And then I plucked up the courage. I thought, I'm going to see if we can see each other again. I said, would you like to meet again? And she said, yes, why not? So we met 3 days later and had a coffee and chatted. And I said, how about another meeting? She said, yeah, why not? And we went to the cinema in Fulham Road and saw a Woody Allen film. And we held hands. And I thought, wow, I've met somebody else.
Oh.
And you shared the sense of humour because obviously you liked his sense of humour.
Her sense of humour.
And you liked Woody Allen's sense of humour.
Oh, I see what you mean, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
She was hard work to start with. I had to fight quite hard for a while, but we ended up 25
Do you think
years
we're
together.
going wrong when we look for looks? And do you think that as we get older, what we're looking for sometimes changes and we realise that perhaps looks are not that important? What is more important is personality and how we get on together.
Very important. And also, she's totally changed. She loves my boldness now. And,
Yes.
And of course, I think she was quite nervous when she said that. But
when you said earlier, you said earlier that men tend to go for women who are younger than them. Was she younger than you?
Yes, 10 years younger. And she worried about that. Yeah. She did say, oh, gosh, there's 10 years between us. She still worries a bit because, when I'm 90, if I get to 90, she's only going to be 80.
Yes.
Young for these days. But seriously, she was a bit worried, but now she's stuck with me. So
No, I don't think 10 years is a lot, actually. Women tend to mature quicker than men anyway.
Right.
My wife is 10 years younger than me, so exactly the same. And we met on a blind date. I always say she had to be blindfolded. But we met on a blind date through mutual friends. And I think that's quite a good way to meet, isn't it? What do you think
Yes.
about
Yes,
blind dates?
I think it is absolutely, absolutely. Because I mean, I've certainly got friends that I think about would sometimes match up with other friends, you know, and sometimes they have met up and it's been disastrous. But in fact, I shared a house when I was a youngster with a couple of other people. We were all young professionals, and one of them knew of a friend of mine and had a crush on her for years and years and years, and they'd never met. And to be honest, I didn't think it would ever work because she was a bit out of his league, really, to be honest. And funnily enough, we bumped into each other once when I was with her, and he came along and I said, introduced them. And I knew, of course, that he'd been dying to meet her for years. And they're still together. And that's, 50-something years they're still
Yes.
together. And I never thought that would have worked.
No.
There you go.
You can never be sure what is going to work. I mean, if you are the catalyst, you can only try, and sometimes it doesn't work out. But, you know, in our case, it did. When I met my wife, she was an aerobics teacher, so she was incredibly fit. And I was a DJ, and she was very indifferent about meeting me because she said, oh, DJs are all very flash. And I thought aerobics teachers are all very flash. They'd spend the whole time going, woo, like that, you know. But we somehow got past that. She had 3 children. So I actually took on a family of, I already had 2 children of my own. So I took on another 3. And at times, I have to say, it was like World War III. There was a lot of fighting that went on, but we got past that. And we've been together now for 40 years. All together,
40.
and it don't seem
Seem a day too long.
Not the old thing about me dear old Dutch.
Yes.
So here we are now. You know, we're still there. There's no accounting. The only thing you were talking earlier about, you know, dating online. The only thing I would think with that, I mean, I've never done it, obviously, but I would think you can't be sure what you're going to get. If what you're told it is, maybe something completely different. What do you
Oh
think?
no, absolutely, and obviously there's lots of scams, and we do see, and I know of somebody who was personally affected by one of these online scams when they thought they were talking to a young lovely who was going to come over from where they lived allegedly, and the person I know sent a lot of money to them because they needed it for a visa or something else, and of course it never happened. It was a total scam, and it wasn't a real young lovely at all.
No.
It happens all the time.
Yes, it does,
a lot
absolutely.
Of time. And then you have people posing as somebody completely
Yes,
different.
that's what this
and
was.
then
This
you
was,
meet them.
yes.
Yeah, I would find
But
it very scary.
I think you can meet people online, but obviously you've got to meet them in real life. That's where the real connection has to come.
I can't believe the thing that people fall in love with each other without having met each other. And you hear that.
Extraordinary.
It's incredible,
Yes,
isn't it? How could
yes.
that be? How could you fall in love with an image of somebody that you've never actually met?
But
Because
what
when you meet
about-
them, they might have a funny twitch or something that really upsets you.
Yes.
Or terrible table manners or
But
anything.
they have these programs now, Married at First Sight, on Channel 4. These people have never met, and they marry in the afternoon. And
Are they mostly young?
mostly mad, I think, or just craving publicity. But it really is a program where you marry somebody you only met in the morning.
There's one called My Mum Meets Your Dad or something, which I saw a clip of, which seemed quite sweet, actually, where grown-up children were trying to get their single parent, together with another person's parent. One of my best friends at school, who was godmother to, not at school, at the school gate, who was godmother to one of my daughters, her little daughter used to play with my eldest son when they were 5. And they used to play Peter Pan and Wendy. And my friend used to say, wouldn't it be wonderful if they ended up together? And I'd say, no, the two alike, it'd be a nightmare. Anyway, the daughter went off and got married at teenage years, late teen, and my son was like, oh, my Wendy got married. But meanwhile, he was having a lot of fun as a single lad. And they met up together some years ago, and they are married now together and very happy. And, so, you know, he did get his Wendy in the end, did Peter Pan.
Yes.
And she's no longer with us, sadly. She passed away some years ago. But I often think of her and I think, oh, Kristen, whatever would you say now, you know, to Michael and Rachel
Yes.
being together, having met
Now,
at the
talking
school.
about television programs, ITV is on the lookout for contestants for a new Love Island dating show called Date My Nan. What would you think about that?
Well, I don't think I'd want to date your nan, to be honest, David.
Well,
but,
my nan,
no,
sadly, is long gone.
Exactly. But Well, the thing is, they're all gimmicky things to get people to watch or whatever. And if people have fun out of it, okay. But sometimes I think some of these things can be a bit voyeuristic. I worry about mental health support afterwards if they've had a lot of exposure,
yes.
etc. I think that's a real issue.
And there's some very sad stories of
Yes.
people who've been on those
Yes.
dating programs
Yes,
and awful
yes,
things
yes.
that have happened to them.
Yes.
But surely the thing about Love Island, I mean, I don't watch it, but the appeal must be that they're beautiful looking people,
Yes,
very
yes.
good looking young men, very pretty young women. That must be surely the secret of it. But they're always looking for new ideas, and that apparently is a new one. So
But what-
obviously, as a woman who's already taken, you won't be.
No, I
taking
won't be
part in that.
applying.
And Rory,
Well,
as
I
a
think
man who's already
yes,
taken,
I think it's
you
very
won't be.
sexist. They should have, meet my granddad. And I'd be on it for a shot. Meet my granddad.
They play that song for you, Grandad, Grandad. That one, you're lovely. Yeah. Do you have pals who are dating? You have pals who are on
Yes,
the dating scene?
I have one pal who is absolutely upfront at the beginning of a date. She'll sort of say, these are the things that I can't live with. I can't deal with alcoholism. I can't deal with this. I can't deal with untidiness. I can't deal with these are the things. And if you've got issues with any of that, it's not going to work, because she's of an age. She knows the things that she finds she can't live with. And, so she's upfront about it.
I think
Absolutely
we
upfront.
become more intolerant as we get older,
Set in our ways.
Yes.
set in our ways. Yes. So that's quite difficult, isn't it? Really, to meet somebody else if you're set in your ways. If you could give your younger self advice on dating, what would it be?
Be very careful. Try and date in the flesh, if you know what I mean. Stay away from this social dating online. And it's always much, much nicer to literally meet the person at a party or with other friends. But again, yes, I reiterate, meet them live.
Yes.
Not on this social media.
Now, very
That's my
sadly,
opinion.
yes, very sadly, some of us lose our partners. You probably got friends like that who have done. I get the feeling that widowers are more keen to meet someone else than widows. I don't know the reasons for that, but among friends of mine, I know some lovely ladies, their husbands have died, and they don't seem to be really bothered. Is it that men are not so good on their own? What do you think the answer is?
I think it's possibly that. I think that's certainly the case. And they say, don't they, women grieve, men replace. And I've certainly seen men replacing, sometimes really so quickly. It's you almost think, this isn't sane thinking going on here. This isn't, because when you lose somebody, it's a huge trauma to you. Even if it's expected, if somebody's been ill for a long time, it's still a huge trauma, and that affects you, your thinking, your rationality. And I've seen certainly some male friends jump very quickly in, which has upset a lot of people. But I've not seen any of my female friends do that. They've been much slower. Some of them are now very carefully sticking their toe in the water, as it were, to try and meet someone. But yes, I've certainly seen that.
Could be a case of once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah, yes.
What do you think, Rory? What about friends of yours? Do you find that?
Yes, well, I have two women friends who are actually trying to meet somebody and finding it very difficult. I agree with you, Erin. Men need women, I think, more than women need men. I think women are much more comfortable being on their own for a while, whereas men aren't. And yet I could say in the same breath that I know 2 or 3 men who are very happy on their own, and even with our encouragement saying, oh, you must go and meet somebody, Tony, you must go on, you can't spend the rest of your life on your own. And even from the age of 50 or so, no, he's not in the slightest bit interested in meeting anybody else. He's very happy on his own with his cats. But some men are quite happy to be on their own for the rest of their lives, but a lot want to get straight back in with a lovely wife to look after them and do the washing and do the laundry.
Yeah. Do you think, in a way, it's like looking for another mother, isn't it? Somebody to mother you and look after you. Of course, a lot of those traditional roles have changed, though, haven't they?
Yes.
And obviously for the better. And things are now much more shared between couples. It's not just the man is no longer the breadwinner. the wife stays at home, runs that's all gone
That's
now.
interesting.
And so
Right,
things have changed a lot. But I'm just trying to think of the oldest person I know who. I wonder whether my friend Pete Murray at 99. No, I don't think. I think he's quite happy,
Happy.
the way he is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Sadly, his wife who was quite a lot younger than him, died before he did, which is not
Quite
not the
unusual.
normal thing, is it really? And of course, it is very often women who are left because men tend to die
Yes, yes.
first. So very often it is the women who are left. And as you've said, they're not always that keen to meet somebody else. There we are. Let's finish on a light note, and let's talk about dating disasters that we know. People who have just met somebody and it's gone absolutely terribly wrong, where it's turned out to be completely the wrong person. Has it ever happened to either of you, or maybe happened to your friends?
Well, just before I met dear old Kathy, the lady I've been with for 25 years, the story I told you about earlier, there was somebody else on Soulmates that I met, and sadly she was completely bonkers, terrifyingly bonkers. And
How did you discover that?
well, I didn't want to see her again, and but she kept harassing me a little bit, kept ringing up saying, why don't you want to meet up again? And I kept saying, well, actually, I've found somebody else and I don't feel that we were going to work out together. Eventually she stopped, but it was quite scary. I mean, this is years ago too, or what do they call it now?
Stalking.
Stalking a little bit.
Yes, stalking.
She didn't actually follow me anywhere, but she kept harassing me a little on the phone. I hope you found somebody now.
I hope so. I've had a stalker. They tend to latch on to radio people.
I bet.
And I had a woman who turned up at the BBC, and Paul Burnett, who was a colleague of mine, unfortunate to be similar stature to me and looked a bit like me, she ran up behind him and threw a can of yellow paint all over him and said, "Take that, David Hamilton." And he looked like a canary. He was covered. And he turned round and he said, "I'm Paul Burnett."
We shouldn't laugh.
Got the wrong man.
Oh, dear,
and
dear,
she appeared in front of the local magistrate's court, and it was the second time that she also threw a brick through a window of a David Hamilton who lived near me, and got the wrong David Hamilton. And the judge said to her, "Why are you pestering this man in this way?" And she said, he's sending me telepathic messages over the radio. And he said, "Saying what?" And she said, "Saying things like smack botties."
Dear,
Oh, you
dear.
devil, you.
I know.
Oh, you terror.
I know. So he
terror.
said, "You've got the wrong man twice." She got a week in Holloway.
Wow.
Quite
Because
right.
in those days,
yes.
they actually put people in prison. But she had a week in Holloway.
They had space in the prisons. in
I
those days,
eliminated
didn't they?
smack botties from my repertoire.
Jolly good.
After that, you've got to be.
I bet your wife's thrilled about that one.
She is. You've got to be so careful about
yes,
what you
what you
say.
say.
Can I thank you both once again very much? You've been the most delightful guests. It's been such a pleasure meeting you. And thank you very much as well. And thanks to our friends at Parsley Box who put the whole thing together. And thanks to them, we've all been together and enjoyed each other's company. Thank you very much. Shall we say goodbye together?
Yes.
Wait,
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you for
Bye.
listening. Bye.